And today we are talking with Dr. Arthur Agastston, author of the South Beach Diet and also now the new South Beach Diet Gluten Solution. Dr. Agastston, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you, Chris.
So, Dr. Agastston, what I found very interesting was the story of how you came to write this book and how you got interested in this. It wasn't something you really set out to do, right?
It's fascinating because the original diet I didn't set out to do either. I was sometimes called the accidental diet doctor. It was my primary interest was preventing heart attacks and strokes, and diet was part of that puzzle. And when I became interested in the prediabetes metabolic syndrome phenomenon in this country, which I thought was causing most of the obesity, it led to the original South Beach diet. And the original South Beach diet in the first phase, which lasts 2 weeks, was always grain-free to get rid of swings in blood sugar and cravings so people could lose weight easily and quickly without feeling they were starving themselves. And while it was intentionally grain-free, it turned out to be unintentionally gluten-free because gluten is in, of course, all the wheat, rye, and barley grains. And we would see some incredible results in phase one. We saw juvenile arthritis and other types of arthritis resolve and psoriasis clear up, and many things that, while I was very happy to take credit for, I thought was more than just the weight loss and reversal of prediabetes. And I eventually realized, partly because of experience with my uncle who was diagnosed with celiac disease, the extreme form of a gluten problem in his 70s, I became aware of gluten problems and finally decided that the gluten-free part of the first phase of the South Beach diet was why many people had bursts of energy and resolved various medical conditions and often didn't want to go to the second phase of the diet. I always thought it was the faster weight loss, but I eventually realized part of it that people were just feeling much better without gluten. And so then I started taking people off gluten specifically, particularly those with GI problems and chronic headaches and arthritic problems and heartburn and rashes and skin irritations. And I was truly just amazed by the results and thought I'd better start telling the world about it.
And Dr. Agastston, one of the things, too, I noticed was with your uncle, it took years to diagnose him, and he had some really serious health problems. It really, really badly reduced his quality of life. So does that happen frequently? And then let me ask you about some of the symptoms people might feel if they are having a gluten problem.
For both, it's known with celiac disease, which is the extreme form of gluten sensitivity of 1% of the population. That's what my uncle had. That it's often years before a diagnosis was made. And even in retrospect, he was diagnosed with the beginning of blood sugar problems despite a good diet about 20 years before he was diagnosed with celiac disease. And he was eventually diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune disease. That's disease where your body cells attack each other. That is associated with celiac and gluten problems. So that was a manifestation of a gluten problem 20 years before it was diagnosed. And in our practice, we've had patients with various problems. They've been told of rheumatoid arthritis, of lupus, of all kinds of problems for 10, 20, 30 years, some since childhood, who are in their 50s and 60s now, who are then absolutely cured when they're taking off gluten. It's almost hard to believe until you see it.